majority of people online. Once again, thanks so much for joining us this evening at this hour. Hopefully all of you are sitting at home, maybe sipping on a glass of wine or stew, maybe an 18-year scotch, who knows. But anyway, thanks again for sharing a little time with us, and we'll get started here in just a minute. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. So once again, thanks again for spending a little time. We're going to try to make this relatively quick. I'm going to guess it's going to be 30 minutes, not near the full hour. So a couple of things. I started off by saying here earlier we're using this Adobe Connect. It's a great program, but we're still just kind of feeling our way through it. So hopefully it works well for everyone. If you have a question and if the comment box here on the bottom isn't working, Chris Frankham is sitting here in my office as well. His email address is christopher.frankham@biomet.com. Feel free to email him or text him, and we'll get your questions answered. Or since there's so few of us, we'll be in the office tomorrow, and you guys can just give us a yell, and we can talk through it however you need. Some background a little bit about the project. The reason why we're doing this and why we selected you is we have had for a long time the need for some digital templating software. Really from both ends. Number one, the obvious reason is there are some surgeons out there who have obviously digital x-ray systems within their offices, and it's created a real tough avenue for the sales reps to be able to go in and template cases like they used to. So the immediate need is obviously to provide a tool for the sales reps and the sales force and everyone out there in the field to be able to template cases. The benefit to this idea as well, though, is if we can have a system that not only benefits the ability to template, but then provides that sizing information, not unlike what Signature does, and we can then here at Biomet get some of that information back upstream to Biomet, where we can begin to see forward-looking cases and have some information on sizing of those cases, then we can start thinking about how we can change the efficiencies of the delivery of orthopedics. All of a sudden now the thought of getting more specific instrument cases, more specific implant deliveries, and eventually maybe even disposable instrumentation that everything comes kitted in a box specific for that patient. The implants go in and then the rest is trash, is really not that hard to imagine. But we literally are at the tip of the spear right now with the ability to have a very nice, user-friendly, and functional digital templating system. We've done a lot of searching over the last 2 years. We've looked at all major systems, and almost all of the major systems have an entire digital suite hooked to it. And by that I mean it's the digital archive, it's the PAC system, it's the ability to move the x-rays, all the patient information throughout all the offices within the hospital network, and it's a big system. What we are looking at is a system that was specifically designed to, by the way, no, I just saw a question from Joe Marie. No, I don't have my webcam on. It's 9 o'clock at night, Joe Marie, and I'm not turning my cam on for anybody. But so no, just audio right now, and then and then we'll turn on the screen share here in just a minute. So right now it's just audio. So anyway, we searched around and found this particular software. And just to give you a little background, this was written by an orthopedic surgeon. He literally quit his practice for over 2 years and designed this software. And the beauty of the software is that the end user, the surgeon who knew all the issues that drove him nuts, that he knew he could improve, was the same person who ended up writing the software. So, imagine a mountain climber designing a pair of mountain climbing shoes or whatever. If you've got the expert who's using the product, designing the product, then it gives you a pretty comfortable feeling, and that's exactly what we found. Another thing about this is our business model contemplates the fact that we're not going to charge any end user type fees to surgeons. So the thought is, if you're using Biomet product, feel free, please use our digital templating system. So we want to be able to get this out to the masses and be able to offer a product that we actually think will create a a delight factor, if you will, in the use of templating for our product. A bit of housekeeping real quick. I know we sent everybody out a confidentiality agreement. If you could, and if you haven't yet, please sign those, fax them back to us. I think Bryce Bedke and Chris Frankham had that information sent out. If you need another one, let us know tomorrow or something. But this is a early evaluation. We are using this demo period. We're going to have 60 days once we turn this on. And this literally is the tool for us to be able to say two things. Number one, does the template work? Does it size? And what we size, was it duplicated in the OR? But as important, and maybe even more important, is if it does work, how bad or how much did it create a new workflow for you or the office or the doctor or whatever? So just as much as the accuracy, we need to know the functionality of the system as well. So it's important that we get everybody up online ASAP and get as much feedback as we can, because we have a lot of decisions that we need to make in a very short period of time. So we've chosen you guys to be that field for us. It's an important role, and I can't stress that enough. We're really looking forward to your help, and we appreciate your help very, very much. All right, with that said, why don't I get started here a little bit. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully everybody will be able to see that. Let me just get this going here. I'm going to mute my own speaker. Can you guys still hear me? I hope so, because I just muted my own speaker because I get a little feedback. If somebody can let Chris know, or somebody can type something in to make sure that you can hear us, because I can't see my my window any longer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and keep going. To launch the software, the first thing we're going to do is launch the Orthosize software. And right away, there's a value for this software that I think will be an important value piece that I want everybody to notice. When I launch the software, the very first thing that comes up is this sign-on screen that you see on the right hand of my screen. And you'll notice that a web page. This web page we can use to point to any web page. It could be the Orthopedic Skills Academy calendar. It could be launch of new products. It could be any number of things that we want to get out to the masses. And again, imagine this being a global format where this particular tool. Hold on.
Remember, it was really slow trying to catch up at first.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna give this a second, you guys. I'm getting feedback or news from you guys that there's a bad echo, so we're gonna give this a minute here to catch up a little bit. But as I was saying, imagine that this would reach all the surgeons all at one time. So we can create a new page weekly, monthly. We could have a point to anything we want. And the nice thing about this opening splash page is it didn't create one added step. Right now, I've not even logged on. This is just launching the program, and this is the first thing that comes up. So what I'm going to do is type in my password. And the system now is going to go out and explore any new updates, any new cases that have been added, and then that's what we see on the screen. Hopefully you're seeing the same thing. What's happening is the system has a series of hierarchies, just like Signature does. So you will have set up with you a list of your surgeons, and the surgeons vice versa with their sales reps. So when this opening screen comes up here on the right, you would see populated the people who are associated with you and with you only. So it's not like you're going to be able to see everybody in the entire Biomet network. This would be relative to your accounts. These two cases that I have up right now are ones that we were playing with earlier today. There is the ability to sort these cases. I could come up and sort by name. If I wanted to, I could come back over and sort by date, by procedure, or by surgeon. Or if your list is very long and it might fill up this entire column, you could come up and simply type in a search, and it would pull up whatever case it is. The cases, this data is actually stored out on a server. It's not stored on any particular PC that you're running. So the beauty of that is this system runs on a PC. It would run on whatever computer that maybe the PAC system is running on in your hospital. It's Apple ready. It runs on a Mac already, and it also runs on an iPad. So the fact that it's multifunctional already is the reason why the architecture was designed the way it was, so that the cases are all stored in one central location, and then you're able to look at these cases from any location and pull the particular case in at any time from any machine. So I'm going to show a knee case and how you would start templating. Up here at the top, it seems pretty obvious. It says Start New Procedure. Right now we have hips and knees set up, so I'm going to click Knee. And what this allows, and one of the more unique things about the system is, as opposed to going in and saying, search, file, open, go to my C directory, look in this particular folder, you know, all the things that we're used to when it comes to computer programs. What this does, imagine it's an app. It's a program running on top of the program. And it simply does a screen capture of whatever's on your screen. So if I wanted to open up an email message that had my digital X-ray picture in it that would be calibrated, I could open it up from an email message. I could, of course, open it up from my PAC system. I could open it up from, you know, iPhoto on my Mac. In this particular case, I created a folder that has some cases on it, so I'm just going to literally double-click in Windows Explorer, open up this particular knee case. And once I've opened up an image, I'm going to click Next. And then I'm going to start giving some basic information. I'm going to look at a left AP view of a knee. I'm going to click Next. Here is where we're going to figure out what the magnification is. And this is going to be critical. And we've not really talked about magnification markers yet. But we have an exact protocol that we want everyone to follow for this particular series, because we want it to be as accurate as possible, so the data that's coming into the system is as accurate as possible, so we can validate the size. So Chris and Bryce have been working on some kind of makeshift magnification markers that are going to use a ball, in essence a sphere, not a coin, not just a circle, but an exact sphere. And that way, no matter what the rotation is of that particular sphere, we're always going to get the true measurement. And that's represented in this X-ray. You can see a sphere that was used in this particular X-ray. So I selected the fact that this was a ball against the joint. It wasn't laying on the table, and I'm going to click Next. And now I'm going to click on the marker. And what this does is the software is going to try to delineate the edge of that sphere the best it can. And it did a very good job in this particular occasion. I clicked on that marker, and it exactly found the edge of that marker. And the system remembers what it was that I typed in the last time. Had I been using a 50 millimeter marker, for example, and I typed in number 50 in this particular endpoint, it would remember 50. The system is very intuitive in that you don't have to sit here and retype in information every time. What you did last time is what it remembers for next time. So I clicked on the marker. It's a 25 millimeter sphere. I'm all good, so I'm going to say Done. And now the last piece to this importation, if you will, is cropping the picture. Now that sounds like an arduous task, like it's going to take a while, or it's going to be real cumbersome. Some people are going to want to crop a little higher and maybe include some of this patient information that you see at the top of the X-ray. Some folks, for maybe some privacy issues or whatnot, are going to maybe want to come down and crop below that information. The point is exactly what I made a minute ago about remembering the steps from the last step. So wherever I crop this particular X-ray, the next time I open the next X-ray, those same crop marks are going to be exactly in place, assuming that if you're using the same digital X-ray system and the same formats are coming in, once you get your crop set, you'll probably be able to keep it set and it'll just flow. The work process will just flow. So I've cropped this picture, and now I'm going to say Done. I think so. Okay. Hang on one second here, guys. We're going to figure out a little technical issue on what's going on.
See if you can go to the, just stop sharing.
Okay, hold on a second, guys. We're going to stop the sharing, and I'll get right back with you here.
See if you can see the list of all the people. Because when I could see the list of people that were on,
yeah,
I could see someone had a microphone by their name.
Okay. I'm not sure how to do that, though.
I don't know.
All right, we're going to have to keep rolling. Is it bad?
No, I mean, occasionally
Okay.
it gets bad, but I can still understand what you're saying.
Okay. All right, we're going to keep going, guys. Sorry for that. Hopefully we're all back rolling. So the last thing I just did was click OK, and when I cropped, and when I said OK, basically that screen grab just pulled into the OrthosizeTraining software. So now I'm looking at the software, and I have the ability to do some simple zooming features. I can adjust contrast if I want. Or I can go ahead and start immediately templating the system, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say that we're going to look at a Vanguard knee. I'm going to look at a CR interlock femur, and I'm going to go ahead and move the component. Now, the thing that you'll notice too is the system, once you get the components up onto the screen, you do not have to go back and forth to a bunch of menus. There's what's called a heads-up display. And every time I click on a component, the heads-up display comes up, and it makes it very easy and very intuitive to be able to use the system. Also, one of the key points to this is the maneuverability and the anchor points. The red dots on the software are the anchor points. So instead of having the components grow from the middle and then grow both medially and laterally, which causes you to have to do some guessing, the concept here is I'm going to grab the femur, I'm going to put that red dot right on the edge of that condyle that I know I need an edge. Now I'm going to grab one of the rotation arrows, and I can simply move the femur up a little bit to kind of get in line with the two condyles. I look to be a little, maybe a little thin here, a little narrow. So I'm going to go ahead and increase my size by 1. And that looks pretty good. And that's literally as easy as that was to template the femur. Now the tibia, I'm going to come down, select the tibia. I'm going to drag my tibia component up to where the red dot is pretty much on the edge. I'm looking over to the lateral side. It seems pretty good. Let's look. If I downsize one, that's definitely too small. So I'm going to go back up and say that's pretty good. Maybe I cheat a little bit. Maybe I can even bring it down a little bit to be more in line with the shaft of the tibia. And in essence, I've just templated that case. If I click the results page, you see that now all of a sudden I can begin to start seeing the power of the system. That number one, we know sizes, but also built into the system would be the product numbers and codes for this particular case, so we know exactly what products we're going to need to cover this case. Now, with a knee, we typically look at 2 views, so we can go ahead and click the template another view button. So I'm going to close the picture that I had open, and I'm going to grab the lateral view. I actually started on the wrong case with this particular patient. I started with the left, and they were working on a right. So let me go back here. And I'm going to say new case. Let's do this again here real quick. So we will start with the lateral side. I'm going to say it's a knee. It is the right side. This is a lateral view. Ball. And now I'm going to click on the marker. So this time it missed the edge a little bit, but no problem. I can come in and just shore that up a little bit. I'm going to click done. Here is the crop marks that came in, and remember I said they stayed exactly the way they were from last time, so that looks pretty good. And then when I click next, I just literally imported that x-ray into the system that easily. Now I'm going to come in and grab the Vanguard components. This was a CR interlock case. And now let's come up. I'm going to start moving the components. You can see the different anchor points now for the lateral view. I'm just going to simply slide this femur down around a little bit, come back and maybe give a little another tweak up. And quite honestly, the 65 doesn't look too bad in this particular view. Let me look at the tibia now. I'm going to move it back around, kind of get in line with the shaft of the tibia. Get it back out here to the anterior cortex. I'm looking back posteriorly. Let's go ahead and downsize that once and see. I think that's going to be a little small, I'm guessing, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it at this particular view. And now let's go back to that original case that I had and actually template the appropriate size. So this is right, and now this is the AP knee. So notice that right was already selected since I was doing a right case. Ball and coin again against the joint. I'm going to click the ball. It grabbed the right size, or the right edge, I should say, on this particular one. I'm going to click Done. The crop marks are all in place. I'm going to click Next, and I just imported that particular view. And now let's actually template the side that the patient came in for before I get sued for malpractice. Now remember, this was a 65, and that's what came in because we had templated for a 65. But we were kind of concerned on the lateral view that seemed to be a little fit really well. Here on this AP view, I think you could argue one way or the other. Maybe the osteophytes are what's given us the issue here. So let's keep it at the 65 in this particular time. And I'll go ahead and put the tibia back up. And we decided that one size down was too little. And clearly one size up is going to be way too much. So we're pretty comfortable with this. And now I can sit here and literally I can click between the two views that I've templated for this particular case, and I'm good to go. So if I feel like this is templated appropriately and I'm ready to save this case, I would come up and click the Save button up here on the bar. I could type in the last name of the patient. So on this particular one, we'll just make up, well, let's do a name that I haven't chosen yet. Okay, so Tim Jerrison's in there. He's put in his birthday. Let's make him a little older than that. Male. Date of the surgery. And accept. Now you'll see a bar that is connecting to the server. This is what literally is now uploading this case to the system, and it's done. I have now just templated that particular case. You can see it's been added to this particular to the menu bar here on the side, and we could pull this case back up. There's only one entry in this particular case, and let's go ahead and I'm going to pull the case back up, and I'm going to show you why that's important. Let's say in this particular case I was concerned and I wanted to go ahead and upsize this once. So I just made the change to a 67.5. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to click Save. All the information was already there, and now I'm just going to click Accept. And in essence, what people would fear is that we're overriding the case.
Can you show them how to change the contrast on the X-ray screen?
Yep.
So that you can lighten and darken the X-rays?
Sure. So I just saved that case. Chris just came in and gave me a question, so let's go back and look at that. So here is the Tim Jerrison, the case that we just did. And now when I double click this, you'll notice there's two entries. It's in chronological order, and that you would always know what was the latest change to this system. So if, let's say, you looked at a case, maybe the PA looked at a case, the surgeon looked at a case, and finally, the surgeons come to agreement on the position and the size, you can come up and pull up, the last entry that was done in the system and be able to make sure that you are fully aware of what's going on. So I'm going to pull the case back up. And the question was, what about the ability to contrast? So let me just kind of zoom in and out here a little bit. There is a contrast capabilities at the top. I can darken the system, or I could lighten it a lot too. So there's the capability of adjusting the contrast right here at the very top. If I zoom in, I can then grab the system and move the X-ray around on the screen so it best fits, or if I can click the middle button, it puts it back into the best fit onto the screen. So that's the ability on how we are templating knees. Now let's look at hips, and there's something on the hips that I would definitely want to show you. And it lends itself a little bit more to the hips than it does the knees because of the multitude of choices that we have within the hips. So I'm going to click on a new procedure, which is the hip procedure. Again, I'm prompted now to open the image. So I'll go back to my x-rays and I'll pull open Mrs. Evans here, her hip. We'll click next. So we are looking at a right. Let's see if I can do this correct this time on which hip I'm looking at or which side. This is an AP pelvis, not just a single hip view or a lateral hip view, but it's the entire pelvis, obviously. It's asking me for the marker placement, so I'm going to click on the marker. Okay, we missed that mark a little bit, but no problem. I'll just drag it over. Kind of resize the ball. It's a 25 millimeter marker. I'm going to say done. Here's the crop again. That seems pretty good to me. I'm going to click next, and that has imported that picture now into the system. So again, the concept with all of this is we aren't doing file, open, import. I got to find it. Whatever's on your screen, however you got it on your screen, we literally are doing a screen capture, making sure we understand the calibration, and then that screen capture is bringing that picture into the software. It's pretty slick. Okay, so let's look at one of these hips, and let's now pick, since there's a variety of components here, this will demonstrate what I want to show you. So I'm going to grab, and excuse me here, I'm of course a knee guy now getting ready to template a hip, but I'm going to grab a cup. A couple things to talk about when you are looking at these devices. As I grab the component and I drag it over to position, notice that the heads-up display comes with me. If that heads-up display is bothering you, you can grab the heads-up display, move it out of the way, and once you move it once, it disconnects itself from the component. So now I can move the component independent of the heads-up display. Not that that's a big deal, but it's something that if you didn't know it was there, it might annoy you for the times that you do need it. Now there's two dots on this component. The blue dots down here represent the center of the articulation within this cup. So as you move the cup one way or the other, you are rotating about that center point. Now, when you go to grow the cup, notice the red dot again, and that red dot represents the anchor point. So I'm kind of looking at this x-ray. Let's see if I can kind of maybe darken up that line just a little bit. It's pretty hard to see, but let's come up and I'm going to drop that cup right there at the point. Let's kind of maybe make it just a hair smaller and see how it looks. Maybe a 58 looks good. I don't know, 56. Again, you're asking a knee guy to do this, so I'm going to say a 56 for this sake is pretty good. Now we're going to go back over and I'm going to select what stem I want. And let's say for this particular case, I want to look at a taper lock standard. I grab the stem. There's obviously different ways people can go about initially getting their component into place. What I'm doing is looking at the very distal tip and saying, okay, I just put the distal tip right in the center of the medullary canal. So then I'm going to grab the top set of arrows and then just kind of drag the proximal top of the stem over into place and get it into shape. I could have, if this was back over like this, I could have moved the proximal area kind of more into place, grab the bottom set of arrows, and move the distal end of the stem. So you can go either direction. Let's see if maybe that looks just a hair big. Let's move, kind of tweak this back in a little bit. That doesn't look too bad. I'm going to grab the heads-up display here. This represents the different neck lengths and where the center of that head is going to be. And the idea is you want to have this ball next to the center of the articulation of the cup. You can manually select these balls by just clicking on each one of the balls, and then that will select the neck length. You can use this particular navigation arrow to move up and down. But let me make it a little bit more dramatic. I'm going to move this neck all the way down to the lowest level possible, and I'm just going to click the center button here, that little center dot, and what that's going to do is automatically pick the neck length that most closely related to the center of the articulation of the cup. Now this other arrow would represent whether or not you have an offset angle change, and if your particular components have a different offset, then you can select that right here on the heads-up display, or you could come over here to the menu and do the exact same thing off of the menu. But again, it's also able to happen right here on the heads-up display. So let's say in this particular uh, office, this particular surgeon, that the ring lock Hemi and the taper lock standard are that particular surgeon's favorite components. So I haven't talked about this yet, but here on the top, there's the star, and this star is representative of favorites. And I'm going to come in, and you can see it has added what we've selected as this particular surgeon's favorite. I'm going to say add. And now all of a sudden, you can see this favorite hardware has been added. So now I'm going to come back, and let's say I'm curious to see what does the microplasty taper lock stem look like compared to the standard. It's selected the same relative position and the same relative size of the component when I switch between the standard to the microplasty, so you don't have to re-template the component. And instead of having to go in and select all of these different components all the time, I'm going to come into my favorites, and I'm going to click Add. So now I've just selected two different components, and now I can switch and just simply put in the standard taper lock, or I can go into the favorites and grab the other smaller microplastic taper lock and flip between either one of those. These favorites will stay here when you start a new case. So instead of going in and selecting new hardware every time, you screen capture your x-ray, import it into the system, you go into favorites, say I'm using my favorite selection number 1 or number 2, and bam, those particular components are the ones that are loaded automatically. Now, not into position. You're still going to have to size and position those components, but at least the selectability of those components are right there in the favorites category. There's a couple of tools as well that I'm not going to, again, profess to know all that surgeons, orthopedic surgeons do, but let's say there are some minor tools in here. If we wanted to look at canal spaces, there's a measuring tool that I just clicked on, and I can measure the canal space, for example. There's a leg length discrepancy tool, and typically, as I understand it, you select the center of the lesser trochanter, come over here and select 2 relative points to the bottom of your pelvis back to the other lesser trochanter, and you can do the math to calculate, in this particular case, a 9 millimeter leg length discrepancy from one to the other. So it's going to give a little bit of a heads up on the surgical plan on what needs to happen with leg lengths. There's an angle tool. There's a diameter measuring tool. So let's say you have a component on the non-operative side that's in there, or maybe you wanted to see what the size of an existing articulating head is, or something of that nature. If you knew the calibration of the x-ray, in theory, you could then measure the ball or the head that's in place and so forth. And then I can also, when I click on these components or on these measurements, I can delete them right off the screen as well by simply hitting my delete button, or I can hit the trash can over here to the side. Now, I've just templated this hip. I can look at the results again with the product numbers. The one thing that I did not mention within this is you can select the liner material, for example. So, it gives us more information back upstream to know exactly what part numbers and products that are going to happen within this case. And when I'm ready for this, the same process, I'm going to click Save. Sorry, Stu. It's the first name that came to mind. Consider it a compliment. And in this particular case, it's Stu Anna. I'm going to click Accept, so I just put in the date of surgery, the basic information. Now the system gets loaded back up, and everything is now back in line for yourself and for your surgeon to be able to review these cases. A couple of the pictures I want to show you while we're screen sharing is these markers. So like I said, we're going to get these markers out to you. The first one is basically it's our kind of traditional neoprene strap, but on the end we've sewn in this 25 millimeter sphere. So we have some protocols on how to mark these, and it's going to be critical, and we want to spend some time, not necessarily right now, but we'll get that information to you guys. And the concept is we want these against the joint And we always need it in the relative center of the joint, depending on the view. And by that I mean, here, if you're looking at the front of the knee, the AP view, then you want that sphere in the center between the front of the knee and the back of the knee. So that would be basically right in front of the fibula head as a reference point. Conversely, if you're looking at it from the side, if you're looking at a lateral view of a knee, then you need to have that marker in between the medial side and the lateral side of your knee, and the tibia tubercle is a good reference point for that. We've got that information, and we'll get that to you. We've got videos out on YouTube that this guy, Paul Beck is his name, who wrote the software, has already produced, and we've got help screens and everything else. So that's some information that we want to make sure is clear. The other piece that we're looking at, and this one is still a little bit still up in the air, is some sort of stand mechanism that this 25 millimeter sphere will fit on the end. And the idea behind this is a lot of times the patients are heavy enough that if you try to feel the greater trochanter, there's enough tissue, and it's really hard to get the ball into the screen or into the field of view because of the patient's tissue off the side of the greater trochanter. But you can use the greater trochanter to get your relative position. So the idea is we would get the position. This stand would be sitting on the table. We lock it in place. Then we take the ball, move it into the center of the patient to get into the middle of the field of view. And then because it's locked in place, we didn't change the height of that ball, and that's going to give us the accurate reading. This one I think is still one that is slightly debatable in nature in terms of how this is going to work, but it's one that we want to look at. Now, I said that the system is able to run on a Mac. It's also able to run on an iPad. During this evaluation, we're going to want people to pull these up on the iPad. The icons, when you log on, I don't have a real good way of screen sharing an iPad with you right now, but you will very easily recognize the same list, the same format, the same color as what you're seeing on the sidebar. To be able to pull up cases, you would double click the case and it would come up onto your iPad. The unbelievable thing about this is, you know, if you spend any time with an iPad at all, how you can use your fingers to expand and contract and to move is called gesturing. And you can take the components, and instead of using a mouse to move the components, you literally take your two fingers, slide them where you want to go. You can stretch them, you can shrink them with your fingers, get them in the exact position, and hit save or modify that templated case. The thing we cannot do at this point is initiate a case from the iPad. A case has to be initiated from either a PC or a Mac, because you have to have the ability for one program to be running on top of another program and have visibility to both programs at the same time. That's a limitation of the iPad. That we have some concepts of how that might work, but that'll be for a future release. We don't want to have everything come out perfect right out of the bat. That was a joke, by the way. What we're going to do is the guys, Chris and Bryce, are going to be getting with you, and I pulled up this screenshot. Because this is a development piece of software, it's not necessarily just sitting out in iTunes for everybody and their brother to go out and download. One of the pieces of information that we're going to need is called the identifier, the UDID number. And that's something that most people aren't familiar with. So it's found in iTunes when you plug in your iPad under the summary tab, and you will see this incredibly long, ridiculous number called the UDID. So that's what we're talking about when we start identifying these iPads, because we have to identify what's going to be connecting and give permission for this particular iPad to have this particular software.
So one thing that you can't see, because this isn't live, it's just a screenshot. If you click right on the identifier UDID, if you click right there, it switches between the UDID and the serial number. The first thing it's going to come up and show you is the serial number. We also need that number, so you'll have to send us both the serial number and the UDID number. And that's just so we know which iPad it's on, and nobody can have the software without us knowing about it.
Okay. Oh, right. So one last thing I want to go to while we're screen sharing, and let me see how easily I can do this. Do you ever have that knot in your stomach, like I'm going to launch my web page and what's going to come up here on front for everybody to see because of my Yahoo News page here? I'm going to type in Orthosize, orthosize.com, and here is the website that we're going to that's up and running now. And what we're going to have you do is how to log on and register. So if you've not, none of you have registered yet. So what we're going to have you do is go to orthosize.com. You're going to come down and you're going to click the register button. And that creates some basic information. You're going to need some first, last name, obviously email, etc. Also then a mailing address. And you're going to say, I agree to the terms, create my account. What's going to happen is that shoots some information back to us here. Chris Frankham and Bryce are running the administration right now of this software. We are going to, I'm trying to talk and type here at the same time. Oops. Hold, please. Okay, this is what happens when I log into my account. So I started to say we're going to get you guys set up in the system, and it's going to take probably another day or 2 days for us to get all of the legal paperwork done for this evaluation. The second that we have everything buttoned up on our end, Chris will send. It'll come from the Orthosize administrator, but it's Chris Frankham. He's going to send you then your password. You'll come back to orthosize.com. You'll log on, and this is where you can go to the download section, and you can download the software for your PC. You can download for the Mac. It talks about the iPad requirements. Here are some how-to guides. Learn how to do the marker placement, like we talked about. There's some of the videos of improving the accuracy, some tips and tricks. So some different things for the software. But the biggest thing is get set up. We're going to hold that information for about 48 hours. When everything gets finished on our end, we'll send you back the information on what your password is. Come into the download section, then you can start downloading this software. It's similar to the signature software in that it needs to be resident on whatever computer you're using to run, which is kind of a downside, but there's some reasons behind that as well. So that is that information. I'm going to now go back to the system here and stop the screen sharing so I can see the chats. And I'm wondering, does anybody have any questions that you might want to ask us? And if you do, you can type them up here now on the screen, and we can see these. Looks like Matt maybe is typing a question. And apparently Matt types with 2 fingers. I'm kidding, Matt. Okay, so yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, is a ball or a coin the only way of measuring the magnification? No. You can use a ball, obviously a coin, yes, and there was the option to say, is the ball or the coin at the joint line, or is the ball or the coin laying on the table? There is a third option on that screen that said, it says, I'm trying to think what it says. It's something like ruler, I think maybe, but it's the calibration marks that are on the side of a digital X-ray. If you know that distance, if it's a 100 millimeter line or if it's the 50 millimeter line, etc., you can select that line, which is the ruler line on that X-ray, to calibrate the X-ray. So there's 3 ways. You can do the ball or coin, either on the table or at the joint, and then or use the ruler on the side of the X-ray. Does anybody else have any questions that we could help you out with? Again, this is a small group, and we're going to be more than willing to walk every one of you through this on the phone if you need be. If it's close enough and you need for us to pop up, we're glad to do it. I can't begin to tell you the importance of this trial and the need for us to have the information. Speaking of which, I really haven't spoken to. We have put together some forms for some feedback. The guys will be getting those out to you as we begin to go live, and we're going to need to have that information turned to us in a relatively timely manner if we could get your assistance with that as well. Okay, so Matt, you asked if the PAX doesn't work on your products. One of the concepts would be load this software on that PAX system. So we understand that's going to have to, we've run into this several times with Signature, which is we have to work with a hospital IT group or the administration of a hospital to allow them to have the software loaded. We can then load this software on any machine. So if we need to run it on that PAX system, we could. Then whether it's you logging in or whether it be the physician's assistant, the physician himself, a radiologist, I'm not sure whom, but if they could initiate the case, get it into the system, when you're at home then, Matt, if you can pull up the Orthosize system on your Mac, and a list of those cases would be out there on the side that you could then import and make sure you could tweak or look at or play with any of those type of things. So the software would probably have to be resident on that system that's running that could access the PACS.
It's also not that complicated. You can load this from an image from your iPhone too. So if you email your Mac a picture of an X-ray that you took, you can also pull it up that way and go from opening the X-ray that way instead of using PACS.
So yeah, so Matt, at your point, you're right. At that point, it would be a two-part process, and that's one of the things that is part of this evaluation, which is how much of the workflow are we creating? Is it going to be objectionable? Is it something that once you get used to it, it flows pretty easy? And you're right, Matt. Yeah. So the function that Chris was just talking about is it would be a picture of a picture, and even though that works, we'd like to not use that right away. We want to take as many variables out of the study as possible. But in essence, yeah, that would work. You can email yourself a photo or however you want to get it to yourself, and if that was a photo from an iPhone, that would work. And Joe Marie, I saw your question. Yes, we are going to be sending out specific markers. I'm not necessarily saying we have to do that. What we want to do is limit the variables. But Joe Marie, if you guys have, the radiologists that have a really honed in way of marking those X-rays that we can confirm is accurate, then by all means, let's go ahead and not, upset their world as much as possible. But again, let's investigate that because we got to make sure the data coming in is accurate, so we get accurate data coming out. Okay, and I was just confirmed too by Chris that the mag markers are actually 25.4 millimeters. So the 0.4 is critical, or else the whole system will crash. Kidding, of course. Any other questions from everybody online?
They can just take a couple minutes to go ahead and go register.
Okay.
Sign the confidentiality agreements.
Sure. So, Matt, while you're typing, I'm just going to remind everybody, while you're online right now, maybe it would be a good time to jump over onto the OrthosizeTraining.com website. Go ahead and just create an account now. It takes literally about 2 minutes. Like I said, you will not get anything back immediately. That's okay. It's going to take us, like I said, just a little bit of time to finalize what we're doing here. And as soon as we have it ready, we'll shoot you that information. We're thinking it's going to be no more than about 48 hours. Are we able to discuss further afterwards? I'm not sure, Matt, what you mean, but to your point or to the question, we're glad to we could talk yet tonight, or if we want to talk tomorrow or anytime thereafter, absolutely. I can be here or Chris or whatever, so you bet, Matt. And also, one last reminder, we talked about it earlier in the beginning. If you've got those confidentiality agreements, if you can sign those if you haven't yet, sign them and fax those back in too within that time period. So when the ink is dry and all the paperwork, we can get things rolling as ASAP. Looks like Joe Marie is typing a question here for us.
Let me go check.
Chris is going to go check. Joe Marie right now, he's walking up to the fax machine. So we'll check it out. All right. Well, again, everybody, thanks so much. Like I said, we can't emphasize enough. This is exciting stuff. Hopefully you saw some pretty neat software that is very user-friendly. I think it's going to be another nice touch point for us to get in front of all of our surgeons again to show that we are trying to move technology forward. It gives us a lot of ability to get information in front of our surgeons with that initial splash page. And then, like I said, this is really the tip of the iceberg for us to really change the delivery of orthopedics by getting smart with all of the other cases that we don't have information on outside of the signature system. So this is really, you can look back and say, I was part of day one when we changed the way we're going to deliver orthopedics. So Bryce has confirmed that we got it, Chris.
I have Stu's too.
Oh, and we got Stu's too. So man, you're on the ball. Okay, if there's nothing else, log on to Orthosize, get your account started up, and if you have any questions, call us anytime, and we can't wait to talk through this with you, and are excited to get things rolling. Can't thank you enough again to sharing your time tonight, guys, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much. And Matt, if you need to yell, we're sitting in my office or call our cell phone. My number here is 574-527. Nope, let me change that. 574-372-1720. Take care. Good night, guys.